Today I'm showing you 5 curated fragrance collections that work for any situation, whether you're starting from scratch or leveling up what you already have. Each of these 5 collections is a starter pack built with 4 specific roles: a versatile everyday scent, a light and fresh option, a deep and warm fragrance, and a wild card that I'll explain as we go. By covering these bases, you're making sure you're always the best smelling person in the room. There are some serious compliment getters in here. I highly recommend to check out the entire video. So all the fragrances in this video are pretty mass appealing, but I call the first collection the mass appealing one because pretty much every single one of them is something that most people will enjoy getting away from. So let's start with the everyday fragrance in the first collection. White Eau de Parfum is among the very best men's fragrances for everyday use, and I will never ever stop recommending it for that. They pretty much nailed the aromatic freshness in White Eau de Parfum. It has a gorgeous, super sexy dose of fruitiness, and the whole thing is softly and smoothly woody. And that mix of freshness, fruitiness and woodiness is pretty much perfectly balanced, making this a versatile scent. Most people will absolutely love getting away from this. The performance is pretty good and you can use it to pretty much any occasion throughout the year. And that pretty much sums up why I keep recommending it. I'm always gonna have a bottle of White Eau de Parfum in my collection. So moving on to the fresh men's fragrance in the first collection, and this is definitely among some of the very best fresh men's fragrances in the world, and also one of the best fresh fragrances from Parfums de Marly. You get an intense but incredibly smooth mix of citrusy and aromatic freshness, made even fresher and brighter thanks to a dose of mint. And the drawdown is where the whole thing starts to get a bit smoothly woody with a gorgeous super creamy dose of sandalwood. There's a gorgeous fizzy kind of freshness in Parfums de Marly Sedley, which always makes me smile whenever I spray it on. This is sexy freshness, incredibly mass appealing, performance is pretty good, and a stunning fresh scent to have in any collection. So moving on to the warmer fragrance in the first collection. And to sort of simplify this, it's basically that fantastic signature Armani Stronger With You DNA with chestnut, vanilla and lavender, but with a gorgeous added dose of cherry. So it's vanillic, fruity and sweet with a bit of soft woodiness in the drawdown, and the whole thing is definitely a bit ambery and you get a spicy kick in the opening. The combo of that Stronger With You scent DNA together with a sexy dose of cherry makes this absolutely addictive. It has grown on me so much since I bought it, and pretty much every single time I spray powerfully on, I end up getting a compliment. Performance is pretty good, great for colder days and absolutely fantastic on date nights. So moving on to the last fragrance in the first collection, and I simply wanted to add something truly mass appealing and an epic 10-10. And I don't think there's a single nose on planet Earth, maybe like one, that dislikes getting away from this. You get a sexy spicy kick in the opening together with what is to me one of the most seductive and addictive doses of vanilla in a men's fragrance. But what makes it even better is a dose of fresh lavender, which basically brings fantastic contrast to the whole thing. But the final twist, which actually makes this a top tier choice for date nights, is a dose of iris. It's incredibly mass appealing and both sexy and classy at the same time. And Le Male Parfum makes the first collection complete. Before I move on, please drop a like and subscribe and let me know in the comments which of these collections you think is the best and why. So moving on to the everyday fragrance in the second collection, which I call the sexy collection. And I call it that because it's absolutely packed with some incredibly sexy fragrances. And Polo 67 is a fragrance I gave a 9 out of 10 in my review. You get one of the absolute best and most addictive doses of aromatic freshness in a fragrance. But the main star of the Eau de Toilette is definitely its fruitiness and sweetness coming from pineapple. The drawdown is where you're getting this super smooth, almost creamy dose of woodiness that basically brings balance to the whole thing. Freshness, fruitiness and woodiness in an absolutely intoxicating way. It's sexy, mass appealing, it has solid performance, and it's definitely a fragrance you can use throughout the year. So moving on to the Freshie in the second collection. And it's basically a combination of citrusy freshness, floral freshness with a bit of soft woodiness. You will basically walk around with a fresh kind of scent, but with a twist thanks to its floral side. I mean, this is absolutely intoxicating. I absolutely love Weiss and Myself Le Absolute, and it's almost a guaranteed compliment getter whenever someone gets a whiff of it. I'm gonna link to my myself comparison somewhere up here in the pinned comment and in the description below. This to me is an absolute banger. So moving on to the warmer fragrance in the second collection, and what an insane and fantastic and addictive compliment getter this one is. And you basically get that Le Male vanilla and aromatic freshness, but with a lot more sweetness to it and in a richer and warmer blend. But what cuts through the entire thing and in a way helps sort of balance out its sweetness is a gorgeous dose of fresh mint. Its combination combination of intense vanilla, intense sweetness and freshness is intoxicating. Le Male Elixir is great on colder days, absolutely perfect for date nights, and the performance is really good. And I do think Le Male Elixir is among some of the very best from Jean Paul Gaultier. So for the last fragrance in the second collection, I basically just wanted to add even more sexiness to the whole thing. And you're basically getting what is pretty much the perfect mix of attention-grabbing spiciness, sexy sweetness, and masculine woodiness with this. It's always been among my most complimented. It definitely still turn heads, and it's simply put an absolutely fantastic men's fragrance. And what I think makes Azzaro the most want to stand out is that its sweetness has a gorgeous sort of a caramel-like kind of feel to it. But more than that, the way they combine just a few ingredients in this incredibly well blended way is simply put fantastic. You are going to get a lot of compliments with the previous three in this collection, but I wanted to boost that with another insane top tier compliment getter. So moving on to the third collection, which I call the classic collection, because all of them have quite a classy and elegant vibe to them, but with a bit of sexiness. And the first one is definitely among the very best and classy men's fragrances for everyday use in the world. And Dior 2020 basically combines a bit of freshness with a spicy kick, a fantastic dose of masculine woodiness, and also a bit of fresh musk. And it's basically a bit fresh, a bit musky, and definitely quite woody. Perfectly balanced though, making the whole thing incredibly versatile. I think this is so well blended, and I also feel there's a bit of uniqueness to its woodiness that I think has this kind of resonance feel to it. It's classy and elegant with a bit of sexiness to it, definitely signature worthy, and a truly fantastic and masculine choice as an everyday fragrance. So moving on to the fresh fragrance in the third collection, and this is basically a more intensely fresh take on that epic Prada L'Homme DNA. And Prada L'Homme is basically a combination of freshness, powdery freshness, and a creamy woody base. You have a dose of neroli and ginger, giving the whole thing quite a bright and intense kind of freshness, and the powderiness in Prada L'Homme is definitely not of the heavy or thick kind. This is definitely more of an airy and fresh kind of powderiness. I mean, this DNA is so classy, so elegant, so addictive, and this more intensely bright and fresh take on that DNA is perfect on warm days. Super versatile, super classy and elegant, decent performance, and the elegant fresh in this collection. So moving on to the warmer fragrance in the third collection. And the L'Homme Ideal line is still among the most unique men's fragrance lines, and the parfum basically combines an amaretto accord with a bit of what I think is a super creamy dose of leather, a bit of musk, and a creamy dose of woodiness. But the main star of the parfum and the whole line is that signature L'Homme Ideal almond. And L'Homme Ideal parfum is basically a combination of that signature almond with a bit of fruitiness, a bit of sweetness, a gorgeous and quite unique dose of booziness, together with what I feel is a creamy dose of leather and woodiness. Performance is pretty good. You will definitely stand out in a way that is absolutely fantastic. And I do feel that parfum is a great choice on colder days. So for the fourth fragrance in the third collection, we're moving to one of the most classy and elegant men's fragrance lines. And this has a bit of that signature powderiness that the line has, but that powderiness amped up. And that powderiness is combined with a boozy touch, and the whole thing is intensely woody and quite ambery. I mean, this is rich, warm, with a gorgeous and quite unique dose of powderiness, a really cool sort of a boozy touch, and all that sits on top of what I think is a masculine dose of woodiness. I usually get really good performance from Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privé, and in this collection I do feel Reserve Privé adds something that is a bit warmer and richer, and something that is more for spring, fall and winter. So moving on to the everyday fragrance in the fourth collection, which I call the sort of a more unique collection. And I call it that because I do feel pretty much every single fragrance in this collection have quite a bit of uniqueness to them. And Loewe 7 Cobalt is basically a combination of a gorgeous super smooth dose of aromatic freshness, a quite unique kind of fruitiness, and the whole thing is softly smoky on quite a woody base. To me, what really makes this stand out is its quite mass appealing and smooth kind of smokiness, together with that fantastic and quite sexy fruitiness and sweetness from blackcurrant. And it's basically freshness, fruitiness and sweetness and woodiness done in an extremely versatile way. And in a way, I do feel Loewe 7 Cobalt is an everyday fragrance leveled up to the max. So moving on to the fresh in the fourth collection, and a fresh fragrance I've talked so much about. The Kenzo Online has quite a unique and fantastic marine freshness, and in this you're basically getting that freshness in what I think is a brighter and lighter way, but with fantastic performance. And you're basically getting that unique marine freshness with a floor touch thanks to ylang ylang, which really brings the whole thing quite a tropical vibe, and the whole thing is incredibly smoothly and creamy woody. And when Kenzo on Marine moves into the dry down, the whole thing also turns a bit powdery, a bit salty, a bit sweet, and a bit musky. Absolutely love this thing, and there was no doubt on which freshie I would put into the more sort of a unique collection. So moving on to the warmer fragrance in the fourth collection, and this is so good I gave it a 10 out of 10. It has a prominent dose of vanilla, a prominent dose of patchouli, and the whole thing is quite ambery. But it's so full of nuance, and what I think makes it quite unique is its gorgeous masculine floral side. And yeah, I keep saying the same thing, but I'm still having a hard time to properly describe how absolutely beautiful and epic this thing is. And not only is Tuxedo a 10/10, it's an addictive head turner, and pretty much every single time I spray this thing on and someone gets a whiff of it, I end up getting a compliment. This is a great choice for spring, fall and winter. So moving on to the last fragrance in the fourth collection, and this is my second bottle of this epic thing. And you could almost, but not quite, call it like a mix of Dior Homme Intense and Dior Homme 2020. But there's a big difference. It's a lot less intensely powdery if you compare it to like Dior Homme Intense. You get a prominent dose of iris mixed with a bit of freshness, so it does have a sort of a lighter feel if you compare it to Dior Homme Intense, with a dry down that's a bit woody and softly powdery. And to me, this quite balanced and more versatile, and definitely the more masculine and sexy take on that Dior Homme DNA completes the fourth collection with its uniqueness. So moving on to the fifth collection, which I call the affordable one. All of the ones in this collection are incredibly affordable but absolutely fantastic. And I guess the easiest way to explain Urban Man Elixir, which I feel is a perfect everyday fragrance, is that this is almost like a smoother version of Sauvage, and almost like a mix of Sauvage EDT and Sauvage Eau de Parfum. So you're basically getting a fantastic, quite nuanced dose of aromatic and citrusy freshness, and the whole thing is quite ambery. I think one of the main differences though, if you compare it to Sauvage, is that this is definitely quite a bit more woody and definitely a bit more smooth. It's pretty much impossible to go wrong with Club de Nuit Urban Man Elixir. It's definitely quite affordable, the performance is really good, and you can definitely use this to any occasion throughout the year. So moving on to the fresh fragrance in the fifth collection, you get an intense but incredibly smooth dose of citrusy freshness combined with a salty kind of freshness, which gives to the whole thing a marine light kind of fresh feel. But the main star in Tommy Poolside Edition is definitely how they combine a gorgeous dose of fresh apple together with its nuanced dose of freshness. The drawdown is where the whole thing turns a bit fruity and creamy woody. I paid less than $40. The combination of that gorgeous fruitiness and freshness and the quite low price makes this, at least to me, a no-brainer. The only bad thing is the performance. Tommy Poolside Edition is definitely not a strong scent, so make sure you spray this thing properly. So moving on to the warmer fragrance in the fifth collection, and this has turned even smoother and richer with a bit of usage. You get a super creamy dose of vanilla that has a bit of sweetness to it. You definitely get a really nice spicy kick, and the whole thing is gorgeously ambery and to my nose softly woody. To me, what makes this stand out is its overall quite creamy and smooth feel, and the overall sort of balsamic feel that it has. If I would do like a top 12 best affordable warmer scents for like spring, fall and winter, Rifakat would definitely be in that video. Rifakat is definitely a compliment getting head turner with solid performance and a very sexy men's fragrance that I feel is pretty much perfect for date nights. And you can usually find this for like $20, which is really good. So moving on to what is not only one of my most used fragrances from this brand, it's also without a single doubt one of the absolute best men's fragrances from this brand. You get a fantastic dose of sweet vanilla, a really nice spicy kick, and the whole thing is gorgeously ambery. And one of the reasons it's so good and actually quite a bit unique is that they added a really nice but quite soft dose of freshness to the whole thing and a bit of chocolate. And pretty much every single time I spray this thing on, someone thinks I sprayed on Angel Share. And Sand Desert at Sunset brings a really nice, super affordable, warmer and sweeter scent to the last collection. Like and subscribe for more. Thank you, I really do appreciate it, and make sure you check out my other videos over there.